Good morning. You're listening to MyRapids Real Estate Show on AM 1320 WFHR, your weekly radio show focusing on real estate, the market, and everything related to housing in central Wisconsin. Welcome back. I'm Ben.
And I'm Carrie Nikolai.
You are an agent with Coldwell Banker Siewert Realtors here in Wisconsin Rapids.
Yes, and you are my licensed assistant working with Coldwell Banker Siewert Realtors here in Wisconsin Rapids.
Well, see, the Wisconsin Rapids part is important because we tend to get confused with other Coldwell Banker offices, or rather they tend to get, people confuse us.
They hear Coldwell Banker and, they automatically do, okay, well, this house, it's here it is, the address, and it's one of our sister offices. So some people get a little confused of which office we are because we can say, well, we can meet at the Coldwell Banker office, and next thing we know, they're up in Stevens Point. And the Stevens Point office is calling us going, we have some people here looking for you. So it's always very clear to make sure we know what office we're talking about.
And we appreciate everybody thinking of us first.
Yeah, well, I hope
pretty close to the top.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed last week's episode. It was very fun to sit down and just kind of chat. So I hope you guys enjoyed it all.
Here being their first episode on AM 1320 WFHR.
You do that so well.
It was pretty cool, yeah. It sounds better in the headphones.
Okay.
So we're making adjustments along the way. So actually, I was doing a little bit of research.
Of course.
A little bit of history on WFHR. Okay. First air date, November 1st, 1940.
Oh, wow.
So a long time ago. And I mean, that was right in the heyday when electronics were first getting going as far as radio. There was a radio in every house. The world wars were kind of in flux. People were coming home, but, there was still tragedy going on. And not really making it into the 1950s yet. That was soon to come. So TV hadn't really been populated. And AM 1320 wasn't actually starting on 1320 back in 1940. It was a little bit lower in the 1300s.
Okay.
So where do you think they got WFHR from? Because it means something.
Well, I know just with you and the ham radio, it has something to do with licensing.
Yep. It's a FCC call sign from the Federal Communications Commission. But
you are super excited about this.
It's also an acronym. Okay.
All right. So just give me the acronym because at this point, I have no idea.
Okay. One of the original owners of the Daily Tribune back in the 40s was William F. Huffman Sr.
Oh, okay.
W for William, F, and H for Huffman. Radio, WFHR. And it just so happens that W or K prefixes are dependent on which side of the Mississippi you're on. So we're over here on the, in our area, and we're W's.
Okay.
And, Cincinnati is like, KRP and, whatever. So different regions of the country has different radio prefixes.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So just a bit of history on WFHR.
Any other interesting history bits you got there?
Well, yeah. We actually moved to 1320 on the dial back in 1959.
Oh, wow.
The original station was only 250 watts.
And what are we today?
5,000 watts of daytime power.
Excellent.
They modulated down to 500 watts at night.
Okay.
Just because the AM station travels the way it does.
Okay. Well, cool. Excellent.
So I thought that'd be interesting.
It is very interesting. You love your history.
Well, I do. And actually, this area is full of history, and I think we're going to be delving into little history tidbits along the way through our show.
I believe we are.
Not today, but, in the weeks to come.
Yep. And it's for our listeners, so this is a pre-recorded, so we record earlier in the week, and then it airs on Sunday. So some of the things that we talk about, we're just trying to be very mindful of. We're trying not to talk about current events because when this gets aired on Sunday, it's no longer current. It's been past events. So just kind of bear with us when we're talking about the beautiful 45-degree weather that we had on Monday, which is today.
Well, still by the, we're airing here on the 28th of February. It's going to be gorgeous Sunday as well.
I hope so. I'm hoping that all the snow will be gone by Sunday then.
Well, yeah, but, we might get more later. March, in like a lion, out like a lamb, or vice versa, depending.
Very true. Very true.
So this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about preparing for springtime And we've talked about this a little bit already, like for what we're doing for the gardening and stuff like that. But with everything that went down in Texas and the super frigid weather we had up here as well,
you just never know when that power is going to go out, and having those backup plans is huge.
Right. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then in hour two, definitely we'll dive right into the market, what's going on in the market, not just here in Rapids, but also across the state and regionally and nationally as well, because all of the home statistics from January came out.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The other great thing that you like is the statistics.
Well, it tells us where we were, and it gives a clue of where we're going to go. Then we can start seeing trends. And by the way, the trend from January was crazy. We've never seen January like this.
No, we have not. And it was just amazing of what really did happen in January. So before we get, down that rabbit hole, we'll just save that for the next hour. And
yeah, we'll just send out a tease right now.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And it was just amazing January. I almost said February there.
That's because the month is almost over.
It is. It's such a short month that it goes by so quickly that, January has always been that super cold month. We just have to put up with it. And then February is so short, it just kind of goes by like a blink of the eye. And next thing you know,
Easter.
We're into March. And March is when it starts to warm up and everybody's ready to go outside and play in the yard.
And then it comes April where we get another 3 feet of snow just randomly.
And we appreciate that.
Welcome to Wisconsin.
Exactly.
So a lot of people coming into Wisconsin from other parts of the country might have a different mindset of what to prepare for. I mean, we don't have hurricanes.
No.
We don't have earthquakes.
And we don't have alligators.
And huge snakes and insects the size of our heads. We just don't.
No.
And that's a good thing. That's why we live where the air hurts our face.
Exactly.
So what type of natural disasters do we have here?
Well, we always have the ice storms. So earlier in the year, in January, we had that beautiful ice storm that came through and just carpeted the whole entire area with that nice, I think it was probably like 1/8 of an inch of ice. Luckily, we didn't lose any power, but everything was just a pretty drive no matter where you went. It was just gorgeous out.
And now we moved into the country with air quotes. Not really, but we're backed up to a little bit of woods and some pine trees. And so when we get all the majestic, thick snowfall on the ice, it looks really pretty.
It is. Just looks really pretty. So we've got any kind of snow. I mean, even that heavy, wet snow can take out the power here. So, or anywhere. I mean, it's Wisconsin. We've seen it happen. I believe last year we only had 24 hours without power.
It wasn't too bad, especially compared to the year before where we had the straight line winds. Mm-hmm. So that's usually more in the springtime phenomenon where we have tornadoes, straight line winds, those types of things. So we've got wintertime problems, we're at ice and snow. We've got springtime problems with tornadoes,
heavy winds,
lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so springtime flooding, right? When everything starts to melt that we had over the wintertime. So what do we have in the summer and fall? Not a lot, just kind of more of the same with the
mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah, bugs. Yeah. But they're not like as big as our head like we have down in Florida.
That's true. Or in Texas.
Yeah. Well, I think most of the bugs died this year, so it's just the coldest they've ever been.
It is.
So now let's start thinking of, we kind of understand the stuff that could cause problems. What kind of problems would they cause? Like you said, power outages are a big one.
Mm-hmm. And with being in the country, if we don't have power, that means we don't have water. So how do we, do we get a couple gallons of water and just kind of have them available so that way we'd have some water on hand? Or do we put in a generator and do like a necessary feed line where we have the pump? We have the well pump on there. We've got the heat and then some designated outlets. So that way we can keep the food cold and still be able to use the stove yet at the same time.
Right. Depending on how your stove and heating system are fed. Are you on electric heat? That's one of the problems down in Texas is they didn't have the robust heating system that we do up here because they don't need it for more than a month out of the year. So they relied more on electric heat, either radiant baseboards or like heat pumps where they would be mechanically, kind of like an air conditioner running backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't quite as much, especially in the, how do I want to say, like more apartment or segmented housing. No. And then do you have hot water or not? So do you have an on-demand water heater or is it a tank? And then even if you have a tank, does it have a powered blower? So you need electricity for that, or is it just naturally aspirated?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that you got to look at and just kind of do the, what do we need to do? Because you can get a whole house generator where you can just power up the whole entire house, but that kind of gets expensive. Where if you just do major systems and keep the house going for a little while at a time, that way you still have the heat, you still have the electricity that you need to generate everything that you need, but may not need to run the whole entire time. We look back at when we lost the power for the 2 weeks at the other house.
It was a beautiful time of year. Mm-hmm. The weather was phenomenal. And so that's one of the reasons why we have such a keen eye on outdoor living space. It's because we like to be outside. Right. We could be outside. And that really filled the gap of, what do? We don't have internet. It's more difficult to do work and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The heater with the water
But we only needed to heat the house. We turned on the generator every 4 hours just to make sure that everything stayed cold. And that way we didn't have to have that generator running the whole entire 2 weeks. So it was on and off throughout the day just to make sure that, food didn't spoil.
So now we can delve into generators for a little bit. So there are kind of 3 different levels of generator.
Okay.
So there's a little suitcase generator, and it pretty much powers what you could power out of a wall outlet.
Okay.
It usually is not connected into the house, so you'd have to run extension cords. So that has its own challenges where you can't power a lot, and how do you get the power into the house to the items that you need to? So you can set up a small dedicated transfer switch, which transfers utility power versus generator power on the appliance, like on your furnace specifically or on your well pump. And then you'd manually have to unplug one and plug it into the other. So it's a smaller option, usually less expensive. You can get one of those suitcase inverter generators for like $700.
Okay.
And then you wouldn't have to have a whole house transfer switch or sub panel, so they save that money too. And it'll kind of get you through. The next level up is a portable standby generator. So that's what we had at our other house.
Which worked out great.
Yeah, it was just enough. That was 3,500 watts, and it was enough to run our necessities. You can get a little bit bigger one. I think the next one we're going to get has more features on it. So it'll have an electric start feature, and it'll be about 8,000 watts, so that it can run a lot more.
Well, it'll be a little bit easier for us to start yet too.
Right. And then I'm more confident that you can just go out on your own if I'm not here and spin the dial, and it'll just start up with a little battery and zoom, 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 just like a car or a riding lawnmower.
Excellent.
So now that has 2 options of being plugged into the house. You can either run the extension cords like I mentioned first, or you can have an electrician come out and install a sub panel where only your essential items are powered off of that sub panel.
And I think that's the way we had it at the last house. We had the sub panel and had everything. We had designated outlets that were for the generator.
Right. And so you would manually have to start up the generator and then manually throw that transfer switch to transfer from a utility power option to the generator power option.
Okay.
But that type of generator, you can get $1,000, maybe $1,200 for a good quality, like Generac, built here in Wisconsin. Kohler is a Wisconsin company. They make good products.
Okay.
And then you'd have to do a transfer switch panel or that sub panel, and that, the panel itself's maybe $350. Then have an electrician install it, so that can increase your cost too.
Okay.
Some homeowners, you could, but it's always best to hire an electrician for those things, especially if you're not comfortable. Now, the third option you alluded to is a whole house generator.
And we've seen a couple of them at a few of our listings that have had a full house generator because of, the windstorm that came through in 2019 and took out power. And so, homeowners went and did the whole house. They had it all, it's there. It's now part of the home. And so we had a couple listings with a whole house generator.
Right, and that's a permanent appliance. So it's hard mounted on a concrete pad. It's plumbed into a fuel source like liquid propane or your natural gas supply at your house. And so as long as the propane is there or the natural gas is running, you can power your house. And it will power everything in your house usually. There's different sizes. You can get a smaller one and it'll just power essentials still. Or a 20 kilowatt will power everything in your house, 25 kW. Those have to be installed by an electrician.
Okay.
Just because of the size of the transfer switch, the voltages, all that jazz. It's a huge undertaking. Plus, they have to pipe fit into whatever fuel supply is there. Now, the other two are usually fueled by gasoline. Some you can get diesel, but that's not quite as common. So then you start thinking of if the power is out in the region, like we had the windstorm blow right through. That was a storm of a really big swath, and it knocked out everything from west to east. We were out, Stevens Point was out, Wausau was hurting, and just marched all the way across. I was in Appleton early that morning, and they just got the same carnage that we did.
Right.
So where are you going to get the gasoline to fuel your generator? So you either have to have it on stock in hand, and then how much for how long? Well, at least until you can go and fill up your cans again. And hopefully you can drive to a place that has gasoline, because the gas stations, you'd think gas stations would have generators to help pump the gas.
And I think we learned a few things.
Yeah. The thing is, if that were to happen, that would be the first gas station to be out of gas.
Well, and I think 2019 kind of really taught us a lot about, power outages and what companies need to have, where they made those steps now, and, that way they can still be up and functional. Because I know Quick Trip in 2019, right away got everything all up and running. That's where everybody went for their coffee and their Dunkers, and, they really took care of the community. It was a spot that you could go to get what you needed.
Well, that's Quick Trip's an interesting animal because they're a convenience store essentially. So they're a store. They've got foodstuffs. And that'll lead us into kind of a segue to our next part is now that you've got power taken care of, however you want to sort that out. So that'll help get you water if you're not on a municipal water system. Now, just to mention water, if you are in a municipal water system, usually it's not too bad because the municipality will have water towers, and it feeds the houses by gravity. Of course, the way they get the water up into the tower is through pumps, and they're pretty savvy. They understand that this is going to happen, and so they've went ahead and installed emergency backup generators at the pump stations. So if you're on public water and sewer, it's here in Wisconsin especially, it's probably going to run. Wisconsin Rapids is a little unique because we've got the river running through it, and so we actually transfer our black water from one side of the river to the other.
Okay.
Under the river. Not through the water, they're pipes.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't put it on barges either. So we have a pumping station, and it pumps it from the west side up to the east side, and that was just redone 3 years ago, something like that. I think 17, 18.
Okay.
That was a big project. So wastewater and the wastewater treatment plant. Fun fact, wastewater treatment plant here in Wisconsin Rapids is partly powered by the methane that it creates by some of the waste products.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they're offsetting some of their costs as well, and that's keeping everyone on the public system costs down. Now, we're out in the country, so we've got a well and septic. And our septic is a passive system, and so you just flush the water into it, and it percolates and does its thing. I mean, septic problems in the wintertime could involve freezing, but there's not a lot you can do to prevent that except the normal septic maintenance. Water taken care of by the well pump. It would be horrible to have your well pump go out during the middle of winter during a power outage.
Yes.
Because then you try to feed it with your generator and you get nothing, and now it's just bad. FEMA suggests that you stock 1 gallon per person per day that you think you're going to be in need of it. So a family of 4 for 3 or 4 days, that gets to be a lot of water.
It does.
So at least 1 gallon, that'll be good enough for hydration, drinking, and sanitizing what you need. And of course, if you're a family, you can ration through cooking and stuff like that and making foodstuffs that are not heavily in water. Or with your canning supplies, there might be some water with that too. So foodstuffs is a big thing. And I mean, we don't want to, you've seen the TV shows, a prepper this, and they got the bomb shelters and whatever, and end of the world apocalypse. If it gets that bad, there's going to be a whole lot more problems. What we're talking about prepping for is preparedness of these types of simple natural disasters that we're going to encounter every year anyway. So let's talk about food.
Okay.
How can we stock up on food easily?
It's kind of, if you do your weekly shopping and you're going to get 2 boxes of pasta, grab 2 more. So you slowly kind of add that into your daily or your weekly grocery shopping. And what we did in the past is we've taken an old closet, a coat closet, and then we turned it into the pantry. Or we've gone into the basement and we've, put a corner into the basement, and it's got, our backup supply. And I've always done it. I think ever since my kids were little, we've always had a little backup system. So had a couple extra pounds of flour, sugar. Pasta's really great. And, nowadays you can get the soup. So it's all freeze dried. You just add the water and heat. We do a lot of grilling. So the nice thing is, for if you got the electric stove, it's not going to work with the power outage, but you got the grill. So fire up the grill. So you now come up with meals that you can do on the grill and go outside and you fire it up and cook away.
So can you cook pretty much everything on the grill that you would in an oven?
Yes. It takes a little bit more finesse. I mean, it's trial and error, but once you kind of catch on to it, then you're able to do it. And you just got to remember, if you're going to be making the pizza, don't put that directly on the heat. You want to do more of the radiant heat. So either have one burner on and put the pizza where there's no flame underneath it. So that way it's going to slowly cook. It's going to take a little bit longer, but definitely able to cook a pizza on a grill.
We should try that sometime. Might be interesting. Especially homemade pizza, you can make it so that it fits on the grill too, not just like this 12-inch, 18-inch, 20-inch round pizza. You could put it in a pan, on a sheet pan or something like that.
Yeah, you can take your regular cookie sheet pan and just put it on the grill.
And then make whatever flavors you want.
Right. So as long as you got the flavors on hand, easy to do.
So the trick is keeping food that your family eats anyway. And that way you know that when it's a difficult situation and you have to really delve into your stock for a full week. I mean, we had easily a week that we had to consider eating without power. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people were out for 2, almost 3 weeks here in Wisconsin Rapids area.
Right.
So the first thing to do is, of course, eat through your refrigerator, eat through the perishable stuff, because that'll perish. And then, start getting into the canned goods a little bit and using the canned goods as a generic for the rest of the stuff. Like you said, pasta is good, and they make the prepackaged pastas.
Yeah, and there's different brands out there that you can use to do things with. The internet's really great at this, just kind of, what can I cook with no power? And definitely can do that. Some people kind of resort back to when we went to Boy Scout camp or Girl Scout camp. What did we make? And, we did it on the open fire. What did we have? And kind of going back to some of those earlier cooking teachings that we've all kind of loved when we went out on camping trips.
Camping cooking.
It is, and it was great. I mean, it felt like you're at a campground.
So a quick safety tip, if this happens in the wintertime, do not build a campfire in your house.
No.
The fire department does not like that.
Your insurance company would not like that.
Correct. Yes. So stay away from that. Find something alternative outside. Mm-hmm. And if we're thinking ahead, we can actually get simple stovetop burners, butane powered, I think.
Yep.
In the camping section. And those you could use on a limited scale indoors.
That is very true. And we have a couple of those as well because we've done a lot of camping and
it's a lot easier than making a fire, that's for sure.
It is.
Especially when you just want that little cup of coffee in the morning. So you just need to boil a little bit of water or make a quick egg. You don't want to fire up the campfire just for that. That'd be a little bit much. But really, one of the big things is with foodstuffs is you can find a lot of options that last a long time. And then you're going to be eating through it anyway. And so when you go and restock and replenish, put that stuff in the back and eat the oldest first.
Got to remember, first in, first out, rotate everything.
Mm-hmm. Rotating your stock is very important. And then if you keep it with food items that everyone in the family knows, when the troubled time is there in front of you, especially the kids tend to not, feel as disjointed. It creates that little bit of normalcy. Mm-hmm. I know you like talking about menus and your simple weekly menu and taking the stuff from the school board and, it's like, what do the kids eat? What do the schools have for their lunch programs? And you can kind of build off of there. And that keeps creating kind of normal food.
So Ben just kind of segued there for everyone out there. So he's bringing in a whole new topic here. So what Ben is talking about is with the culinary background that I have, it didn't start out with planning all these really elaborate meals. And so what I did is...
You start out with a soup, a salad, a cooler, bread. Oh, wait, no, that's the 5-course meal that you worked into. That's not how we do it. No.
That's not, I don't know where you're going. But anyways.
You got to get the sorbet to cleanse your palate in between. No, that was later in life, right?
That was later in life.
Okay.
So the way that I started out doing all of my meal planning was I kind of looked at the kids' school lunch menu. And, everyone's talking about how they want to make sure that their family meals are well balanced and they're nutritious. Well, the schools already have to have that already figured out. So it already has to be balanced and nutritious. And then they give it to you. They send you out the monthly letter, the calendar that says on Monday, this is what the kids are eating. And they've got, the protein, they've got the carbs, they've got the vegetable and the fruit. So, I mean, you get your 4 basic food groups and it's pretty awesome. Well, I learned much later in life that as my kids were like in first and second grade type of thing, I could also use that for my evening meals. And so just kind of on a chuckle and on a whim, I made up a menu. I took their old menu from 2 months ago and I cut it up and just started drawing stuff out of the hat. And just did we're going to be having chicken sandwich tonight. And we're going to be having the broccoli and we're having this. And the kids didn't catch on that it was their lunch menu because we made it our way.
It tasted better because Mom made it better.
Right. So that's the way we kind of did it. So that way, hey, it made making a menu, a weekly menu. That way we didn't have to wonder at 4:00 in the afternoon, what are we eating today? Or trying to do grocery shopping going, I don't know what we're going to eat this whole entire week, because that is the hardest part of adulting is to come up with what am I eating every day?
I have to eat every single day.
Right. So I let the school districts help me out with that. Even still, I mean, I'll take a look at, Port Edwards, Nakusa, Assumption. I'll just take, all the schools and just kind of see what they have out there on their website. And you can just print off that month's menu plan that they have. And there you go. You just kind of borrow a little bit.
And I've noticed that it repeats, it cycles.
It does.
There's only a finite amount of things, especially core things. So you've got your core basics, and then it sort of repeats and shuffles around just a little bit.
So what I learned with when I cooked at one of the schools is they had a 2 different menu, and it was a rotating menu. So it was 2 6-week menus, and they rotated. So week 1 was schedule A, week B was schedule A. So we had an A-B rotation going on. So that way it extended a little bit more. So when the schools did their planning, they're already planning 2 months in advance. So that way when they know what their shipment is going to be, they know what they need to order. So it was kind of really interesting to see how that all worked out. And then just to kind of use that for at home of let's try to make the one most difficult thing a whole lot easier.
Excellent. So you don't need to go fancy.
No. Sometimes you can just, let's just have the school district take care of us even still and continue looking at what they have. And then you can make it your own. So if you want to have that chicken sandwich just be a little bit more spicier, you can. It's how you want to prepare it.
Or if you need to cut down on the salt, or you have want to cut down on the sugar items, you can adjust all that stuff.
Yep.
To what you and your family need.
And then, take an index card and go, okay, well, this meal worked out really good for our family. If you're really savvy, you put the meal on the one side and you put the shopping list on the back side. So that way you can go, okay, well, do I have everything in the house to make this meal, this day's meal? So the little tricks that you kind of learn along the way. And it even helps, even out it.
And then you start seeing what's popular with the family. I like meatloaf. Meatloaf's a pretty common thing. You can take a meatloaf recipe and make it into meatballs. You can make it into meat patties and call them burgers. Mm-hmm. You can doctor up a meatloaf a little bit fancier one time, a little bit more simple the next. But it all kind of has the same sort of ingredients. So now when you're shopping and you're preparing for the future, you're like, well, we're making meatloaf this week on Monday, but hey, there's a sale on breadcrumbs or whatever. And you can buy 2 or 3 times for the same amount that you would buy just the one. And all those extras go into the pantry for
future use.
Yeah. And so you can stock up on a lot of that stuff pretty easy. And especially if you have like a nicer payday or the stimulus checks come in, whatever you feel about that. Still, it's a little bit of extra money that you didn't have before that day. And you can use it to stock up on food or prepared a different type of your life or your homestead.
Yep.
And I really think it's great that the house, if you shelter in place, that's one of the biggest benefits of being a homeowner and owning your own house is this is your castle. And you get to know it and understand how things are working or not working and really get an idea of if there's a situation, a disaster, you can hunker down, and you take care of yourself.
Yep. I think, just being ready and being prepared is always a good thing. We talk to all of our first-time home buyers, whatever age they happen to be. We just always make sure that, we mention a few of these things of, okay, well, it's 80 degrees outside and we're talking about shoveling snow and going, it's a very long driveway. You might need a snow blower. Or my favorite to go, and you don't have a sidewalk to shovel. And everyone looks at you like, what? It's 80 degrees. We should be talking about the barbecue in the backyard. I'm like, winter is coming.
That's nice. It's Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You're going to have to deal with the frozen water.
Yeah, because winter is coming. Even as we're heading into the spring season, we're already looking forward to the next winter season because winter is coming. And, there's things that we need to do to our house this spring and summer so that way it makes the winter season just a little bit more easier and a little bit more comfortable.
So now with the temperatures causing a bit of a thaw, we're going to be looking into the springtime, and I'm going to be curious on water management at the house. Is there water going to be coming in places where it shouldn't, that we just didn't see evidence of before? Because, we bought our house in the dry season, just before the winter, and there are a couple of indications that at one time there was a water issue here or there, but they look to all have been remedied.
Yes. And we've noticed too this winter that we have some ice dams on the house, and our gutters are nice and full of ice. So as this thaw is starting to happen, is that going to be backing up, and is that going to be coming into the house? What do we need to do to make that during the winter, or during the spring, the summer? What can we do to change the gutter situation to make sure that they don't freeze up again?
And every year is different. So even though you've had 10, 15 years, whatnot, of no water in the basement, for instance, and you may have a single sump pump, and that had been taking care of any water that might have percolated through your ground tiles in the basement, maybe this is the year when we have an unusually wet winter, and then
a wet spring, and we have the rains every other day, and the ground is just saturated. And as we know, with the basement, water is going to get in, especially when it's super wet outside.
So it changes. All this stuff changes. Or there may have been, now a geological change down the water path, and it's kind of pushing all that aquifer underground back up to where it didn't used to be. And we're seeing those problems everywhere in the state. Water is just changing, and it always gets to the point of least pressure. Mm-hmm. So I always say, if you've been a long-time listener of us, the most important thing that's with every homeowner is water management, keeping it where it should be and keeping it out of where it shouldn't. So I think especially we've set up ourselves well for the next year with the insulation in the attic to help prevent the ice dams with that. Mm-hmm. I know we're going to look at the gutter system that we do have and upgrade that in the spots that it needs to.
Yeah, because the gutters, I think that's going to be our biggest thing, because right now with them all frozen up, it's a concern.
Well, and that's not, it's pretty common to have the ice in the gutters. We had that over on our last houses as well.
Did we really?
Yeah, not quite to this extent, because we also had the ice damming problems caused by the warm attic air. So it was compounded here a little bit.
Okay.
And the style of gutters that we've got plastic gutters that are, like 10, 15 years old.
Okay, so it's just kind of time for new gutters to begin with.
Right. So in our previous house, we had seamless aluminum gutters.
Ooh.
They were great. And they were metallized, so I could electrically charge them. And I actually ran the ham radio out and lit up our gutter with ham radio, amateur radio stuff. So that was cool. Yeah, I actually, unbeknownst to you, I tuned into the Grand Ole Opry on our gutter.
Excellent.
I know, right?
There are some things a wife should never know.
It's a stealth antenna. It was pretty cool. And I could say that I did that. So we've also got some outbuildings here. So here at the homestead, we're going to look at see how those are handling. One's a garden shed, and the other is my workshop, Site B.
Site B.
Right. It's a Jurassic Park thing. It was pretty cool. But the garage workshop was built a little bit later than the house, and it's a little bit different construction.
Well, and we've got the big pines that are covering it, so it gets a little bit more of a natural barrier.
Right.
So it's a little bit more protected versus the house where it's kind of out in the open.
Exactly. So that leads us kind of into some of the projects that we're looking at here in the springtime. Really getting the idea of what's going to happen here in the state, the region. The tornadoes and the windstorms are pretty much now what we're going to be facing, and this house is oriented different. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have the winds still coming from the west predominantly, but our house is now set up to go with the wind instead of perpendicular to it. So we're paralleled with the wind. And what's going to happen to the trees? And what condition are our trees that we have on the property in? Are they going to be, wind loaded and tip over, break off? How are the branches?
So look forward to the video of me buying a chainsaw.
Well, we already have a pole saw, chainsaw on the end of a stick.
Right. But I'm looking forward to the actual chainsaw.
And that's going to be a whole nother a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. You know, what brand do we get? What size do we get?
We're going to be doing a Husqvarna.
Okay. Do you want electric or gas?
It's going to be gas.
So now we're going to have to buy a gas can just for that because it's a mixed fuel.
Oh, of course.
Yep. And then
Because everything we buy, we have to buy a new gas can. As long as we write on it, this gas can is for blank, and you get blank type of gas written on it. So that way, you know, our kids come over and they need to borrow the lawnmower. They know they grab the lawnmower gas can, and it's written on there that you get blank for the gas to put into the lawnmower. So that way we don't accidentally put diesel in a lawnmower.
what starts with different colored cans in the first place, and then and there's a whole discussion of ethanol versus non-ethanol, and well, honestly, for small engines, not having the corn in your gas is a good thing.
So I'm gonna go out and buy a chainsaw probably in early May.
Yes. Happy birthday.
I know, my birthday present is gonna be a chainsaw. I'm super stoked.
Make sure it's pretty. It's got to match the lawnmower.
It's gonna match the lawnmower. Let's just be honest. It's got to match the lawnmower.
So I've got Echo Power Tools for the lawn trimmer and edger and pole saw, leaf blower. It's a combination system. Got it from Ace Hardware here in Wisconsin Rapids on 8th Street. Love those guys. We've got also, so orange and black is their color scheme. We've got the Husqvarna lawn mower, zero turn that we got at the end of the season. Got that from the Sears hometown store.
Yep.
Yep. So that's also orange and black. I ride a Harley Davidson, so that's black.
And orange.
And orange. Now if we get a Husqvarna, it'll totally match the zero turn.
Exactly.
Orange and black. Yeah.
I try to keep everything all in the family.
And then I'm going to get a Generac generator. Guess what color that is?
Orange.
And?
Black. Maybe with a little bit of silver in it, if I remember right.
Exactly. See? So, got to keep it all trending.
Exactly. So hopefully we can get our basement project, the utility room, all tied up, done up here by the end. I'm really hoping by end of March, so that way come April we can just turn the focus and look outside, because my Christmas present was the very large flower boxes that you built for me.
And I did not disappoint, did I?
No, you did not. I went out to Site B to take a look at them because we needed to move them out of the garage, and holy cow, they are big. Big.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if you actually used the right tape measure because they just look big.
I did. So we wanted something that we could spread out the vegetables in a little bit. Because our last flower boxes, you can look at some of our previous videos on the YouTube that we have.
Yeah, they were 3x4.
Sure.
So they were little. I mean,
little rectangles.
Yeah, you could actually hug them and move them. I mean, it wasn't.
But they're also the perfect size for the property that we had.
Very true.
And they were metal and they clipped together, and really you could tear them down at the end of the season, or you could move them. They would be great for on a deck or a patio. Just put a plastic ground sheet underneath them first before you filled them up with soil. But here we've got bigger space. We want to spread out the plants a little bit.
So we went large.
We went big.
Yes. So we did a 4x12.
4x8.
Oh, 4x8?
Yeah, we got the 12-foot long.
Oh, that's right. That's where my 12 comes in.
Yeah. And if you take 4 feet off of a 12-foot, you get 8. So I made them 8x4, and we had no scraps.
Yeah. So they're super, super large. I had to move one. I'm just like, are you sure we measured right?
Oh, yeah.
Because they look quite large. But they're going to look really great in the yard.
Yeah, they'll fit. So how are we going to fill them with dirt?
Well, I have a truck. So I am going to, as soon as that recycling center opens up, I will probably be spending every day going over and getting a load of dirt. So either getting dirt on the way home from work or getting dirt early in the morning.
So one of the great things about living here in Wisconsin Rapids area, Wisconsin Rapids and Grand Rapids both have municipal, well, we share the same municipal plant recycling, yard waste depository. So you can take brush, grass, yard waste, and food waste stuff over there to get it composted and whatnot. And it's only open certain times of the year. Head over to the City of Wisconsin Rapids website, and they've got a whole breakdown of locations. There's one on the east side by the East Side Water Tower and the BMX.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one over on the west side, kind of by the industrial park as well.
Yeah.
And yep, they do a lot of the processing. They'll take the waste and turn it and spin it, the compost piles, and they'll shred the timber waste, so brush and
We
whatnot.
got to know them quite well last year. We're trying to fill up the old flower beds.
Right.
And
but we didn't have a truck then.
Yes, we did.
But we didn't put the...
We did.
We did,
Because my truck is my Mother's Day present.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got it early in the year.
So we had a truck last year. Because I made all the other guys jealous as they showed up in their minivans, and here I am with my truck.
But we didn't just throw it in the bed of the truck. We put it in plastic totes.
Right. You
So-
still were in the plastic totes, and, which is great.
You got to keep the truck clean. You know?
Right.
You just don't want to throw it in the bed. Well,
There's-
we're going to do the throw it in the bed this year
Okay.
because there's going to be a lot.
Yes.
So-
There's going to be a lot of dirt that needs to be moved. So I'm probably going to be spending some early mornings at the recycling center. So it just might be me putting the dirt in the truck and dropping the truck off at the house, and I grab your car and I go to work and you move dirt during the daytime.
We'll make it work.
Yeah.
It'll be good. Now, if you don't have access to all that, really you can accomplish the same thing with more trips in your car.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got a Chevy Impala, and
You were able to fit 4 bins
In the
four
back seat.
totes. So,
Yep.
the storage totes, we use that
I think
because
they're 18-liter
yeah.
totes or something.
So we didn't have a truck. I had an Envoy at the time when I bought this house, so didn't really have a truck. But
And then you had a Chevy Cruze, so a small little...
yeah, but that
Sing-around
Envoy
car.
could really hold the dirt. I moved a lot of dirt with that one.
And stone and patio pavers and all that jazz.
Oh yeah, we used it just like a truck. We just ignored the fact that it wasn't a truck.
So, I mean, it's totally doable to move them out of this either lawn waste to the compost site or composted material back home. And normally, generally, and I'm speaking in big swaths here, if you're in the city in a small house, you're probably not going to have a pickup truck, or your vehicle is going to be small enough where it's a small SUV and you don't want to just throw dirt in the back of it, or maybe you do. It's up to you. And traditionally, if you live out with a bigger property, bigger area that's on roads that aren't necessarily as plowed or upkept, you would be having a truck or a larger SUV.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all this can be accomplished with some plastic totes and a little bit of perseverance.
Yeah, and just to kind of help protect the vehicles just a little bit more too, we always put down, a sheet or an old blanket that we put everything on there, so that way the car was a little bit more protected. But yeah, we moved quite a bit of dirt with your little car and with my little car, so it was kind of fun. But this year we've got the truck, and we're gonna move a lot of dirt because I think it's gonna take a lot of trips.
Yeah. So they're 4x8 by 18 inches deep.
Okay.
We're not going to fill them all the way up to the top, so just 15, 16 inches of deep. That's a lot of cubic feet of
Dirt.
product.
Yeah.
So that kind of spools into our kind of long-term preparedness plan is, why should we go to the grocery store and buy the vegetables that we know we're going to use, like tomatoes and tomato sauces and all that stuff?
Well, we've also used the farmers market too. So for some of the stuff that we don't have the space or the ability to grow. So some of our vines did not turn out so well, so we use the farmers market as well. So even if you don't have the ability to do a garden in your backyard, but utilizing that farmers market is so key in this as well. So I mean, you can go there and you can order what you need, and they're happy to give that to you.
I'm finding one of the great things about doing your own food production and canning is, okay, let's take beans and carrots, for instance. Okay. When you put them in a jar, what else do you put with the jar?
Water and salt.
Water and salt. So now you've got however many pint jars of not only food product, but water to go with it. So now you don't need that extra water away from your potable water for consumption. You've already got it in your pre-planned little food products. And I've even seen where they mix some of their vegetables, and it's like this quart jar with some stew meat, and that's all you need. You got the vegetables in with your liquid, and then you just put the meat, and poof, you've got a slow cooker stew.
Right. So it just, where your comfort level is. Maybe you start off with something, simple first with, usually beans or carrots is usually where you start off first. And then you kind of work your way up into all that.
So now moving here into springtime, do you start seeds? Because now would be about the time to start seeds inside the house. Or do you wait until the garden center opens up, and then you just go over to our wonderful friends over at Ace Hardware when they have the garden selection out front?
And we are just going to wait till Ace Hardware opens up.
Yeah.
And we're going to get them. Now, I've tried starting seeds here in the house. I've tried it several times. I mean, this is not just like once I tried and it totally failed and did not work. We're talking, I have had years. I've like 10 plus years of failed start the seeds in the house. So I know I'm not a start the seeds in the house type of person. Just doesn't work for me. I like going over to Ace. I just like walking through and going, I would like 5 of these. I would like 6 of these. And I want 12 of these. And next thing you know, it's like, poof, look it. I've got a garden.
Magic.
It is.
So now it's coming to the end of the hour here.
Okay.
So y'all stay tuned for next hour. We're going to be talking about a lot of the market stuff in the area and a few community events that you had gone to in this past week.
Yep.
So stay tuned for that. And check back with our social media. We've got a great YouTube video about starting seeds in the springtime.
Oh, excellent. Maybe I should watch that and maybe learn a few things.
Learn from yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try.
So seed starter, I forget what the video is, but it's on our YouTube page. Just search for Carrie Nikolai on the YouTube, and there she is. And if you, the listener, have comments, suggestions, or questions about housing and all the stuff that we're talking about, go ahead, send an email to myrapidsradio@gmail.com. So myrapidsradio@gmail.com.
Okay. Seems easy enough to remember.
And of course, if you're looking for information on houses and what's available, head over to myrapids.com.
All right. Excellent. Well, we're going to take a little commercial break here. And you want to do the radio name? Because you do that so well.
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay.
We're here at AM 1320 WFHR.
All right. We'll be back right after this. You guys all enjoy.
Stay tuned and come back for hour 2 of My Rapids Real Estate Show, where we take a deep dive into central Wisconsin real estate market and more housing-related topics.